Hi everybody, Lloyd Snyder again from Atlanta, Georgia. I've made this video about a couple of pieces of equipment that are not often talked about, but play a very important role in safety in working on the table saw. Those two pieces of equipment, the riving knife, this thing right here, and the blade guard. I'm going to try to make this quick because this is very simple to change. Almost all table saws today come with these two pieces of equipment, and they come easy to change out. My original table saw, which I had for over 30 years, had every safety device on it removed because it was just so much trouble to change between cuts that I just was foolish and removed the safety equipment. One thing I would like to point out before I get into the riving knife and the blade guard is the blade itself first, because after all, it is the part of the saw that's probably going to hurt you. These blades are so sharp, and if you're smart, you buy sharp ones and you buy good blades. Pay the extra money, it is definitely worth it. However, every cut I've ever had that involved the blade when it wasn't moving. When the blade's left in the position that it's in right now, it's extremely dangerous, because when you're reaching around and you're like me, you use the table saw for a workbench sometimes, you will lacerate yourself if you come across that blade. And I've cut myself on them before. It's not pretty. So, best way to keep the blade is out of sight, unless you're cutting with it. Now, we all know there's several types of cuts you can make on a table saw. You can do rip cuts, you can do cross cuts, you can do resawing. These two pieces of equipment will help you out in nearly every case. And I'm going to start with the riving knife. The riving knife is this easy to install on this saw, and practically every other saw on the market. You have to be careful because you're reaching into the saw right next to the blade. So there's plenty of room, and if you're careful, you won't cut yourself. If you're not careful, you will probably cut yourself. And you'll learn real quick not to do that again. Now, I'm going to bring the blade up a little bit. And as we all know, we don't cut boards of that size on a table saw, but I'm going to use it for measurement. Bring the blade up, about a half a tooth or about a quarter of an inch above the board that you're cutting. That's how you set your table height, then you lock your blade down. The riving knife allows you to do a through cut, especially on rip cuts. Rip cuts are highly prone to kickback, because when you're cutting with the grain, which is your rip cut, you're releasing a lot of stress in what I believe they call the tangential part of the board. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure. But when you release that stress, one of the things it can do is it can cause the board to want to close in on the back side of the blade. When it closes in on the back side of the blade, it pinches the blade at the worst possible angle. This blade travels at about 5,000 RPM, and if you close in on the back side of it, it's going to throw the board. If you don't have something like a riving knife. The riving knife allows the board to ride through the cut and then through the riving knife so it can't pinch. That's the safety of the riving knife. Now, the other times that a riving knife is excellent, and for this cut, you can't use the blade guard, and that's for resawing. Resawing is obviously when you're cutting not only in a rip direction, which is with the grain, but you're usually cutting in that position. So you're trying to make thinner boards out of thick boards. Obviously it wouldn't be a board this size. But that's when the riving knife is used. The blade guard itself cannot be used in a resaw. It can be used in a rip cut, but not in a resaw cut. So getting on to the blade guard, notice how easy it is to take the insert out. Almost every table saw on the market today makes this as easy as possible so that people will use these things. Mount this, being careful to stay away from that extra sharp blade, but it is that easy to put that blade guard on. And once you get all this stuff out of your way, you can slip this over the blade, and I will do this without cutting myself, I promise you. Now you've got your blade guard in position. It keeps you from lacerating yourself on the blade. This is extremely handy for cross cuts. It obviously won't work with a sled. The riving knife will. It'll go through your sled. It's good for rip cuts for the amount that the blade can cut. It is not good for resawing. It can't be used. That's where you have to go to the riving knife. And a riving knife is a very important part of this thing. Change out is easy. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to take the blade guard off. Before I do that, I'd like to point out a couple other safety features of almost every blade guard on the market today, and that's these pawls. These things are anti-kickback pawls, which you can put them out of the way. And amazingly enough, the only cut I have received on this saw, I've had this saw for about 8 months, I believe. I'm not actually positive when I bought it, but I got it about 8 months ago. And the only cut I've ever received was on this pawl right here, because these teeth are very sharp. But they're sharp for a reason. When you're running a board through in either the rip or the cross-cut position, when the board passes the blade, it goes through another riving knife, which comes with the blade guard, but it also hits the anti-kickback pawls. When it does that, that board sticks. It gets jammed by the teeth, and the harder it tries to come back at you, the harder it locks down. So it won't come back at you if you use them. You can raise them up out of the way and not use them. It gives you that option. There's a secondary set of pawls right here, which are smaller, which are automatically in position for when the blade is in the lower position for a shallower cut. The larger pawls don't work as good, so this particular blade guard has a smaller set, which grabs very efficiently. I can't pull that backwards. They dig in like an alligator just putting his teeth on it. So that is the two safety devices that don't get a lot of press, but you should use them as often as you possibly can. And once again, changing them over, extremely easy. Get these things out of the way. Now I'm not going to rush this because I don't want to be cut on that blade. But it's that easy to take it off. This saw and almost all the cabinet saws, at least on the market, and most of the table saws, most of the contractor saws, have a place underneath them that'll store that, and another place that'll store your riving knife. But no matter what you do, use one of these two devices. They will save you some pain and heartache, and possibly the loss of some blood. We're going to get the blade out of the way, which is the place I like it the best. Put the table insert back in, which again, extremely easy. That's it. That's all I have. Be safe. Try to finish every day just like this.